From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
How did life begin on Earth? Why, scientists say a drop of water may hold some secrets. And the lack of water is causing a new supply chain crunch to emerge.
Overall, most of our ingredients are roughly about 30% more than what they had been in the past.
The battle to move ag products down the mighty Mississippi amid drought conditions.
Not only is a lack of rain going to cause river levels to stay low, but it's also going to make harvests continue progressing faster and faster here.
We're tracking it all right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. The logjam of barges along the Mississippi River appears to be growing by the day. The backup coming at a critical time as harvest ramps up. Reuters reporting about 100 towboats hauling about 1,600 barges are lined up. They're waiting to pass through an area on the river near Lake Providence, Louisiana, in the northern part of the state. As we've been reporting, low water levels on the river due to drought are impacting the flow of grain to U.S. Gulf Coast export terminals. The National Weather Service predicting the reading at Memphis, Tennessee will reach its second lowest level ever later this month. Now, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is dredging the river to try and deepen the shipping channel, but towing companies are cutting the number of barges per tow by nearly 40%, and shippers are loading less cargo per barge in an effort to allow vessels to sit higher on the water. Now, Reuters says many U.S. Gulf exporters have been forced to pull orders for corn and soybeans loaded for this month and next, saying they can't commit to new sales right now. And that is already having an impact on prices farmers are getting in the Midwest, just as harvest ramps up. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins us with the very latest. Michelle.
Clinton, the combination of the slower barge traffic on the Mississippi is combining with slower rail movement and increasing harvest pressure. This has caused cash basis levels to collapse in the central and eastern Corn Belt, which means lower grain prices for farmers there. This is a stark contrast to what they're seeing in areas of the Corn Belt hit hard by drought. Last year at harvest, farmers saw some of the strongest basis and cash prices in years, but that's not the case in the central and eastern Corn Belt this fall. Basis is collapsing partially due to lower barge movement, with Mississippi River water levels the lowest since 1988.
If you're looking anywhere in aggregate markets around the river that are feeding it, or certainly directly on the river, we've seen that widen out quite a bit. In
areas like Decatur, Illinois, soybean prices around processing plants on September 20th were at $16.64, with basis $1.84 over the board. But the cash bid on October 5th was down $3 from that to $13.64 with a negative 10-cent basis.
I think it's about $3 right now to load a barge and get it down to SIF out of St. Louis. So it makes sense as we see those effects push out into wider markets that would be there.
Anchola says that effect could last for a while this fall.
I also think that producers need to be ready for a compounding effect there, because not only is a lack of rain going to cause river levels to stay low, but it's also going to make harvests continue progressing faster and faster here.
Cash basis levels haven't broken as much in the West due to the grain deficit in drought areas. Cash basis was historically strong there all summer, and that continues. USDA shows Kansas corn basis ranging from a positive 40 cents to as high as $1.50 above the futures in the South.
Livestock feeders, ethanol plants, some those that can export, exporters as well, trying to scramble for supplies.
And O'Brien says that problem won't ease anytime soon.
From March to August, March to September, when we're waiting for a new crop, at that time we'll have to supplement our supplies with out-of-state corn.
Cholla says they're already moving lower-priced grain to deficit areas of the West as the strong cash basis levels are attracting grain to those markets. So from a marketing perspective, farmers in the areas that have seen a substantial drop in cash prices may have to store their crop and wait for basis to improve, as eventually those strong basis levels in the West will lift levels farther east, or they can find an end user in those drought areas to sell to.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Also impacted by this latest supply chain crunch, getting feed to farmers. Farm Journal's Tyne Morgan is at World Dairy Expo in Madison, Wisconsin. Tyne, you've been covering feed availability and issues that dairy farmers in states like California are having even getting it. What are you hearing at World Dairy Expo this week?
Well, Clinton, even though we didn't see a rail strike, transportation issues are still a heavy weight on producers. We visited Katie Grinstead of Verclair Farms. She says supply chain headaches are far from over.
We've had problems getting some supplies. We've had problems getting parts. Products like milking gloves and blood tubes, penicillin now has been a problem. Products that I could have never even imagined being a problem getting.
John Deere's economist says supply chain issues for parts is very different than the consumer segment. But overall, she thinks it could be another year before significant supply chain improvements hit agriculture.
See those continue to improve throughout the year, especially when demand from consumer segment is tapering off a little bit. I think that's going to leave room for supply chain on the manufacturing to increase and improve over the next year. So maybe not in the next 6 months, but by the end of 2023, I think we do expect to see some of the normalizing all of those supply chain, but not all the way, but perhaps getting closer to where we were before COVID.
Grinstead admits she's seen a lot of firsts since 2020. But now that the dairy industry is not only having to pay more up front to have many items necessary in stock, rising feed costs are also a pain point.
Feed costs continue to be our #1 expense here at the dairy. Some ingredients have been up as much as 50%. Overall, most of our ingredients are roughly about 30% more than what they had been in the past.
Well, the positive side of the situation is the family has embraced automation, especially in their feed center. That's helped them produce even higher accuracy. But again, all of that is an investment. And as we know, Clinton, investments do require more capital at a time when costs are already up across the board. Reporting from Madison, Wisconsin, I'm Tyne Morgan for AgDay.
The end of the growing season is nearing in many parts of the country. Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik has the latest on the potential for frost.
That's right, Clinton. We've got the frost, the freeze potential there as we head towards the end of the week. The colder air coming in behind a cold front that's going to sweep across the northern plains into the Corn Belt and eventually towards the East Coast. Hard freeze, though, possible in the upper Midwest and portions of North Dakota, South Dakota. As that cold front advances through Saturday morning, that cooler air follows it. A light freeze or even area-wide frost possible into northern Ohio, northern Indiana, and Michigan. And that cooler air continues to filter on towards the East Coast, where places like northern Virginia, Maryland, and Pennsylvania could be looking at area-wide frost heading into Sunday morning. Then it will gradually get a little bit warmer into next week. Here's a look at our jet stream where, as we see it now, there's a ridge out in the west that's keeping things warmer. Cooler air continuing to flow into the upper Midwest and move across the Great Lakes into the Northeast. But look at that big dip in the jet stream coming in late into the middle of next week and into late next week. And that could be potentially bringing some more unsettled weather to the West Coast. And not everyone is hard at work during harvest right now. Check out this photo from Louis Nigg. He says here's Bo and Luke sleeping while they work in South Dakota. Hey, everybody needs a break from time to time. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
Gas prices may be down from those summer records, but a new announcement is likely to drive costs back up. OPEC announcing plans to cut oil production by 2 million barrels per day. Now on Wednesday, OPEC and non-OPEC members agreed to curtail output in an effort to shore up falling prices, despite efforts by President Biden to pump more in order to lower prices at the pump here in the U.S. Crude oil futures are trading near $88 a barrel. That's down from $120 in early June. The drop in prices is driven mainly by global economic fears amid high inflation, the war in Ukraine, and supply chain disruptions. The cut in production is scheduled for next month.
Win the Furrow programming on Ag Day is brought to you by In-Furrow leader FMC. Visit your FMC retailer or infurrow.ag.fmc.com to learn more.
Yesterday, we discussed the technological advances of machinery helping farmers win the furrow. Today, agronomist Ken Ferry discusses the advancements of products helping protect the seed.
One of the things we think about in the furrow today that we didn't have 5 years ago, definitely didn't have 10 years ago, is the book of different types of seed treatments that we can use. So we have, I would say, a lot higher horsepower insecticide and fungicides that we can apply in furrow that not only give us protection on the seed and the seed area, but can also give us systemic protection up in the plant for the first period of that corn crop's life. as well as nematicides, meaning that we deal with certain areas, we deal with a number of corn nematodes that give us trouble, and today we can actually add nematicides to the seed treatment itself and give us a lot of especially early protection on nematode feeding in the sands, especially where the nematode pressure is high. These are tools that we didn't have just 5 years ago, for the most part, definitely not 10 years ago.
Another mixed day for commodity markets. We'll take a closer look, including a look at what's happening in those wheat markets next in analysis. And later, it seems pretty basic, but scientists are still making discoveries about water and its role in creating life today in the country. Ocean carriers are canceling dozens of trips on the world's busiest routes during what is normally the peak season. The Wall Street Journal reports this month's cancellations are a sharp reversal from just a few months ago. That's when scarce shipping space pushed freight rates higher and carrier profits to record levels. Trans-Pacific shipping rates have plummeted roughly 75% from a year ago. The transportation industry is dealing with lower demand as big retailers cancel orders and vendors try to cut inventories. What impact could OPEC's decision to cut crude oil production have on the rest of the commodity sector? AgDay's Michelle Rook takes a deeper dive in today's analysis.
Wednesday's market closes higher in livestock. Grains were mixed. Joining us, Sean Hackett with Hackett Financial Advisors. And Sean, seems like we're embroiled in the macroeconomic climate here with the commodity sector. So a risk-off day on Wednesday.
Yeah, we have a Fed meeting coming up, Michelle, and the last 2 or 3 meetings have gone very poorly for the markets. They continue to be surprised how strong Chairman Powell has been with his rhetoric over continuing to tighten regardless of economic consequences. And until he changes his mind or his tune, I think we just have to be very, very careful, at these meetings until we, get some sign that we're nearing the end. Until then, I think it's going to be a lot of risk off with with some relief rallies like we saw the last couple of days, but they just aren't going to be able to get going or getting a momentum until they really give a clear signal they're ready to back off.
Right, and obviously part of that has been the strong dollar. The other thing that we've been watching has been the crude oil market, and OPEC says that they're going to decrease production about 2 million barrels per day. Now, will that have an impact on crude oil futures, and what impact could that have on the commodities sector?
It's had a little bit of a short-term impact. I mean, crude oil has rallied a little bit on this news, but I don't think it really will make much of a dent until the United States stops dumping SPR onto the market. I don't think those moves are going to change the overall price profile of crude oil, especially with the ongoing worries over collapsing demand continuing week after week. I just don't see that being enough right now.
So what other fundamentals are we going to be able to trade here in the grain sector? We seem like corn and soybeans are waiting either for data off the combine or changes in production from the WASDE.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're harvesting. We're 20% done as of Monday. We're going to start continuing to get fresh supplies. That should bring selling in as it always does. Unfortunately, I still think we are stuck with Russia sound bites. Now there's, worries that they're going to start dropping nuclear bombs and all those sort of things. And the wheat market's gyrating back and forth every time they think they're going to do it or not do it. I think we're really stuck to those kinds of things, Michelle, until we can either get clarity about what Russia's actually going to do, or we got to start getting more into the weather season in South America. That really will make a difference to production.
Okay, so still trading and chasing headlines. Thanks so much, Sean Hackett with Hackett Financial Advisors. More AgDay coming up.
Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joining us here. And Matt, we've been talking about this colder air coming in, and now not just a frost, but it's like a pretty hard freeze.
Yeah, and we could be looking at that not only in the upper Midwest and northern plains, but all the way through parts of the Ohio Valley and even towards the East Coast as we head into the second half of the weekend. And you can see that area highlighted in blue: northern plains, upper Midwest. A hard freeze possible on Friday morning. Temperatures getting down at or just below that freezing mark. Yeah, it is possible, and even some frost, maybe even a little bit farther south, southern Minnesota, down into southern South Dakota. But look how far that cooler air starts to come. Area-wide frost possible. Northern Indiana, northern Ohio, through Michigan and northern Illinois. Yeah, it's possible, and that cooler air is going to keep on coming towards the East Coast heading into Sunday morning. A light freeze up farther to the north with area-wide frost possible as far south as northern Virginia and eastern Pennsylvania, even parts of New Jersey and along coastal New England could see some of that as well. So a very cool air for the first time this season coming on in, and this could end the growing season for most. This is why we've got that ridge back off to the west, and we've got that dip in the jet stream. And watch this. Here comes the cooler air continuing to kind of flow on in over the Great Lakes. Stays warm out in the west, but watch this. As we head through Monday and into next week, we've got a big dip in the jet stream going to drop onto the south, kind of an upper low here. Could create some unsettled weather and cooler conditions across the west coast, something we'll continue to keep an eye on. Still looking cooler in the northeast, but then some warmer air starting to build on into the mid-south, and we'll continue to keep an eye on that. Here's the temperatures, though, for this afternoon. Cooler across the northern tier, and look at that, still 80s and low 90s across the deep south. Stay a little humid as well. Here comes that cooler air. Look at this. Temperatures down into the upper 30s across the Dakotas, and then getting even warmer. We got some of that sunshine still, but cooler all the way through the Great Lakes and back into the central plains. And this is why this cold front right here is going to bring itself south, and behind that, that's where the cooler air will come from. Not a lot of rain associated with any of this, but some more showers will start to form back in the center part of the country and the Four Corners region as we head towards the end of the week and into early next week. And we'll continue to track that right here on Ag Day. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. Mio, Michigan, showers likely, a high near 58 degrees. Heading to Deming, New Mexico, scattered showers with evening storms, a high near 71 degrees. And Paisley, Oregon, sunny and warm, a high near 82.
USDA releasing aid for farms and meatpacking workers. The organization announcing 15 groups will get $670 million in funds for farms and also meatpacking workers that were negatively impacted during the pandemic, including expenses incurred during the outbreak by meat packers since they were deemed essential workers. Now, the funds would amount to $600 per person and will start going out soon. $20 million was also earmarked for a pilot program that would recognize the efforts of grocery workers. A cattleman will spend at least 11 years in prison after being sentenced in a so-called ghost cattle scheme. 51-year-old Cody Easterday was accused of charging for the costs of buying and feeding as many as 265,000 cattle that simply did not exist. Now, it's reported the scheme cost Tyson Fresh Meats and another victim at least $244 million. Last year, Easterday pleaded guilty to one count of wire fraud. The charge was due to the fact invoices for the fake cattle were sent across state lines in a scheme that lasted 4 years. Easterday told the court he had a gambling addiction. The U.S. Attorney for Eastern Washington called the scheme, quote, a massive, brazen, and long-term fraud. Some companies belonging to the Easterday family are still involved in bankruptcy proceedings in order to pay restitution in the case. Well, we know water is essential for crops. Now, scientists are studying how it impacts human life. What they found next. Scientists may still be working to learn the meaning of life, but a new study suggests they could be closer to finding how life on Earth began. The scientists believe they've uncovered in water the secret ingredient for building life. Chemists with Purdue University sharing their findings in a study published by the journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. They analyzed water and say they have uncovered in it a mechanism for peptide-forming reactions. Peptides are the building blocks of proteins, which are the building blocks of life. That means those reactions discovered in water are essentially the chemistry behind the origin of life. Now, scientists believe this could give some credit to the theory that life on Earth began in the oceans, but they acknowledge the chemistry remains a mystery. They say learning more about how water works could help in developing drugs to treat some of humanity's most debilitating diseases. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day out in the farm country.